Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started in a few more minutes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is just now 9 o'clock. We are going to get started in one more minute. We see there are a few more folks dialing in. So thank you for your patience, and we'll get started momentarily. Good morning. Hello, everybody. It is almost 9:01, but I like to start things on time, and I appreciate everyone who's here. So we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Danielle Crewe. I am the Director of Business Development for the Global Good Fund. I hope you are all doing well and staying safe. I want to thank you for joining us today for our inaugural virtual BEC Community Conversation, a look at a post-COVID world. We have a great conversation planned for you all today. And we also want to take some time to talk a little bit about the Global Good Fund. Hopefully you can all learn something new and find ways that you can all engage. I know some people who are joining us today are new to us, and I know everybody here is new to the BEC since we just launched this. So actually, if you could all go to the polling question and let us know who you are. We would love to see who's joining us, who's new, who's a coach, who is a mentor, who you all are. So if you guys want to take a few minutes and let us know, that would be terrific. I see we have some business mentors. We have some folks who are new to the Global Good Fund, which is great. Just helps us drive the conversation and let us know who is with us today. So what you can expect, again, you're going to get some updates. We're going to have a fantastic conversation. And also just want to let you know what we're up to at the Global Good Fund. And then finally, we're going to end with a Global Good Fund spotlight and some information about our leadership services. So as we go ahead and get started, what is the BEC? What is it that we are all about? The BEC is designed for our business, executive, mentor, and coaching community. It is for all those who are invested directly in our work, either through philanthropic support, through leadership, and for those who are working directly with our program participants. Through the BEC, we are hoping to showcase the expertise in this community and further engage you in our work in the mission of the Global Good Fund. Our goals are simple. We want to build a pipeline of diverse mentors and coaches that are representative of our entrepreneurs and of our program participants. We want to advance the Global Good Fund mission, and we want all of your investment in the support of the Global Good Fund's long-term strategic growth. And that's why we are here, and that is why we have started this community. So with these goals in mind, I really want to start today by just saying thank you. Thank you for being with us, for joining this community. It is the BEC network that makes our work possible. It is because of your work, it is because of your support, your offering of your time, your talent, and your resources that support our mission and invest in the leadership of our social entrepreneurs. And for that, I really just need to say thank you. And I'm looking forward to growing this community with each of you. And thank you for investing all of your time in our work. And with that, I would like to let you know what the Global Good Fund has been up to. We are here in a virtual setting. I'm sure we're all getting really sick of these virtual calls, and we're waiting for the day until we can get it back out in person, but we are committed to keeping everybody safe. So for the foreseeable future, we will be continuing to have these dialogues and conversation in a virtual forum and in a setting. And I know many of you were with us back in May when we had our first ever virtual event, which we shared with you our COVID-19 rapid response campaign. And if you missed that or you're not able to join us, I highly recommend that each of you watch it. It's up on YouTube right now. I'll share the link with everybody in the chat box or in our follow-up email. You can learn about how the Global Good Fund is continuing to support our fellows and alumni through our management crisis series and trainings that we have. We talk a lot about the commitment we made. We invested over $300,000 in capital to keep our entrepreneurs not only surviving, but thriving. And our work has really not slowed down in light of recent events. We are currently in the middle of our search and selection process for the 2021 cohort of Global Good Fund Fellows. We actually just closed the first phase of this search and selection process with the highest number of applicants ever of over 3,000. And we could actually use your help. We are looking for BEC members to help us review applications and interview prospective fellows. So I'll be sending out additional information following today's program about how you can volunteer and help us with this next phase of search and selection. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's move on to the main event. A few housekeeping items. To ask questions for our panelists today, hopefully you all see the Q&A tab at the bottom corner of your screen. Please click on it, and that is where you're going to go to ask your questions. I will be monitoring that Q&A box, and when the time comes where we open it up for participant questions, that's where we'll go to, depending on time. We might not be able to get to everybody, and that's okay. We will talk to our panelists to see if we can follow up with you individually. So make sure, leave your contact information so we can get back in touch with you. So for this morning, you are going to hear from Kimberly Lewis and Maurice Jones for a discussion on how small businesses can safely reopen and how we can better support underrepresented voices in today's climate. Maurice was appointed CEO and president of the Local Initiative Support Corporation in September 2016. LISC is one of the country's largest organizations supporting projects that are focused on to revitalize communities and supporting economic opportunities for its residents. Prior to his current position, Maurice was the Secretary of Commerce and Trade for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Maurice previously served as the Deputy Secretary for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development from April 2012 to January 2014. Maurice will be joined by Kimberly Lewis, who is the President and CEO of Goodwill Industries of East Texas. She is an author, a speaker, a consultant. She has 20 years of executive level nonprofit and business experience. She is a founding member and chair of the Goodwill Industry International Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And most recently, she was named Brookings Institute to the Brookings Institute on their Playful Learning Landscape Steering Committee, and as well as the Global Good Fund Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, for which she is the chair. She consults with several local, national, and global organizations in areas of leadership development, racial equity, and building a diverse and inclusive culture. The conversation today is going to be moderated by Wood Parker, and I know many of you on this call know Wood well. Wood is the former CEO of TASK. He is a former White House fellow and has written extensively about change management, leadership, and the transformation initiatives to achieve improved business results. Now, I am just giving you headlines and snippets of our amazing speakers. They have quite long and impressive bios. If I attempted to get it all in, that would be our entire hour. So I encourage all of you, if you do not know our speakers, check them out on LinkedIn, see their full bio. It's up on our website. It's really impressive. And I'm so excited for our conversation today. And I know you will really enjoy hearing from everybody. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to our moderator, Wood Parker, to get us started.
Thanks very much, Danielle, for that introduction. Welcome, Kimberly and Maurice, and welcome to everyone who has joined us this morning. We appreciate your taking time to be with us for this discussion. Before we get into the main topic of today, let me ask Kimberly and Maurice for each of you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Danielle introduced you, but tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are today, and perhaps how you became involved with the Global Good Fund. Kimberly, how about you going first?
Certainly would. Thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle. It's been a wonderful ride, a wonderful journey. I am located here in the home of the Roses, Tyler, Texas. And I got to this place in life in general, really just continuing to learn, being a lifelong learner, enjoying the journey, being a lover of people, a lover of history, a lover of social philosophy, if you will. And so I enjoy just being with people. I enjoy learning new things, which is what led me to the Global Good Fund. And I've been with Goodwill Industries for now 17 years. And we are the original social entrepreneurship before that was even a thing, before that was a term or word or anybody knew who it was. So when I saw something come across my desk about the Global Good Fund, anything that says good always catches my attention. And I read the background and information and read about the awesome work that the Global Good Fund is doing. I thought, well, I want to be a part of that. And so I applied in 2018 and became a Diana Davis Spencer Fund Fellow, and just have really enjoyed the journey. The fellows are absolutely brilliant. And what I love about the Global Good Fund is its reach throughout the world. And it brings in a very inclusive, diverse conversation that is global and that I find so much value in. So again, just thank you all for being here. And I kind of wave in from Tyler, Texas, but originally from Charleston, South Carolina. So just hey to any of my Gullah Geechee friends out there. Thank you, Wood.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly, very much. Maurice, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, good morning to everybody, and it's nice to be with you all. Just briefly, I'm a country boy from a little town of 1,200 people in Virginia. I was raised by grandparents on a tobacco farm. I've done a number of things since the tobacco field. Practiced law for a little while, worked in state government, worked in the federal government, ran a newspaper, and am now at a national nonprofit community development organization known as LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation. It's been a fun journey, and full of work and rewards. So I'm grateful for it. And there's much more work to be done, especially at this time in the history of our country. The Global Good Fund really came across my radar because of outreach from your CEO, Carrie, who reached out to me and said, hey, I think there's some work we can do together. And so we have been, over the last 18 months to 2 years, looking for ways to actually work together, particularly around talent development, in entrepreneurism in places like the opportunity zones and in other places where we work. So I'm really delighted that the Global Good Fund is doing the work it's doing. I'm really delighted that it's focusing on leadership development, and I'm happy to be with you all this morning. So happy Friday to everybody.
Thank you, both of you. We appreciate it. And the Global Good Fund is fortunate to have folks like you part of our network. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Kimberly, the next question is for you. Our topic today is about reopening small businesses and other organizations amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. What would you say in terms of your perspective of how do we safely reopen small businesses and organizations today?
Thank you, Wood. We see this all around the country, and some businesses are doing this well and some are really struggling. And I think, the thing that we have to remember is that it's going to be slightly different for everyone, depending on your industry, your sector, the city that you're in, the county that you're in, the state that you're in, regarding the restrictions that you have. But the most important thing that you have to remember is safety. And the safety of your staff, the safety of your customers, of those that you serve in your community, and putting that first above profits. Now, there's a way to do both. There's a way to be profitable, but also to be safe. And I'll ask Danielle now to bring up the slides that will help individuals to kind of follow along with some key points. First of all, reopening in a crisis is not business as usual. This is, and we've heard it so many times, it's like a loop playing in my ear, that these are unprecedented times. And yes, they certainly are. And it's not like we can flip back through history and see, well, how did businesses respond to this during other times of crisis, because things are so different now. So we have to also look at what is the reaction. The reaction, your fears, the fears of your staff, the fears of your customers, the fears of your community. I was all set to just open back up, or first of all, not even close my stores. I have 15 retail stores, and I was set not to close my retail stores until we absolutely had to, because we depend on the revenues from our retail operations to support our mission. But as I walked around and I spoke to staff and I looked in their eyes and I saw their fears, and then I began to look at what the CDC had to say, and look at what the science and the doctors and the community as a whole had to say, I began to think about, okay, where do we really need to be when we look back at history? So I wanted to look at things from a data perspective, certainly. And I looked at, okay, when we get to a certain point, 50% of our sales, then I'll know it's time to begin looking at a decision. And so we hit that mark and I said, okay, it's time to close, because now it's no longer even feasible financially to remain open. And that feeds right into the planning. Then who, what, why, and where, almost like, the journalist questions. I also was a journalist, Maurice, so we have that in common. So who, what, why, and where, and there's also a how in there that usually, but I'm going to focus on the W's here. Who needs to be contacted? Your staff, your vendors, your customers, your any entities, the city that might need to be contacted that you're closed, depending on where you are. What has to be done immediately? Do you need to call your board together? Do you need to call your staff together? Why should you do anything at all? Again, going back to your why, your community, the fears, the concerns, the safety. And then where do you go from here? Start outlining a pathway to reopen as soon as you close, if you haven't done it already. How do we know that it's going to be time? Now, in some areas, you don't have a choice. Your county or your governor will mandate that you shut down or you reopen or whatever the case may be. And so you follow those guidelines. Then third, resilience. You want to ensure the survival of your business. So look at various things that you might be able to do while you're in shutdown mode. So whether that's e-commerce or if you are providing services, how do you do that virtually? How do you continue some semblance of normalcy so that you don't lose your audience, you don't lose your customers? How do you maintain some connectivity and some normalcy and begin to put those things in place? In our case, we were able to, in 3 days of shutting everything down, to shift to virtual classroom learning, which has proven to be a win-win for us and for our students, and we're continuing that. We also doubled down on our e-commerce, and we found that we could do some of that, much of it, even not being in the building, just making short runs in the building, one person at a time, going to get items and then shipping it out. So find out what you can do in a down economy that will help you to be relevant so that when it's time to fully reopen, you're ready. And then that moves us to the recovery, the financial, the emotional, which has really played a strain on our communities, on our psyche. And then the physical, the financial. Again, look at where you are. What can you take advantage of? We know that many have taken advantage of the PPP loans. What can you take advantage of to keep you afloat? How can you use social media to keep you afloat? What lines of credit can you tap into? Then your emotional. Stay connected. Stay connected with your people, with your customers, with your staff, with your vendors, any of your stakeholders, your board. Stay connected. A simple phone call, a Zoom call, a video that you send out that just says, hey, I'm thinking of you all. I know that we're all socially distancing, and I just want to check in and make sure how you're doing. And then the physical. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you are paying attention to the cues of your body, that your body is telling you, that your mind is telling you. Make sure that you're staying in touch with that physical aspect, and so that, you know, when it's time to come back, you're able to do that in a safe manner and in a healthy manner. Then, what's our new normal? Mask. That's our new normal for now. That deep cleaning. You know, it's no longer just, we're going to take a cloth and just wipe off the dust. You know, we have to make sure that we have all of our cleaning materials. And, you know, for a while it was difficult to even find that. So stock up, you know, as much as you can, where you can, not overstock, but just make sure that you have supplies on hand throughout this entire journey, because we'll continue to need supplies. And we're seeing that there are spikes, and there are some drops within the marketplace. So sometimes you can get a hold of cleaning supplies, and sometimes you can't. Virtual meetings are, you know, are an everyday thing. Meet virtually with your staff, whether it's Google Hangouts or whether it is a Zoom meeting or GoTo or whatever the case may be, phone calls. And then look at what your policies are on working remotely. And you may need to expand those policies or create some policies about working remotely. Danielle, can you bring up the next slide? So I want to just leave you with this. This is new. This is the first time that any of us have experienced anything like this. So give yourselves permission to be flexible and be agile. The beauty of small businesses is that you can pivot quickly, much more quickly than larger businesses. You may not have all of the resources that a large business has, but you have the capacity to pivot and shift as quickly as possible. Then take advantage of every no or low interest loan, as I said before, the forgiveness loans, the payment waivers, talking with your landlords, and use that money to stock up on your supplies, any materials that you may need, or any IT advantages if you need webcams for your staff, or so that people can work at home. Stock up on those things. The supply chain, as I said, is sluggish, but consumer buying is not. Being in the retail area, I can tell you it is not. Our sales, as soon as we reopened our stores, we had record sales. It was like Black Friday all over again. So it was wonderful for us. And sales are starting to tamp down now and get back to normal, but we're still having spikes of really great sales. So people are still buying. They may not be coming into your stores quite as much. You may not have as many people coming in, but those who are coming are buying, and they're buying more per visit. So capitalize on the online market, e-commerce, capitalize where and when it is appropriate to do so in person, whether that is a drop-off service or someone does a curbside pickup. Think of all of those things that you can use to remain relevant in this new normal. So Danielle, you can remove the slides now. So I just want to encourage you that there is recovery during this crisis, and we're going to be okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kimberly. I appreciate that. Before I turn to Maurice, let me just remind everyone who is watching, if you have any questions, use that Q&A box to post your question, and Danielle at a later point will include those questions if we have time available. But we do want to hear from you. Maurice, you indicated earlier that the Global Good Fund is about leadership and leadership development, and Kimberly talked about some of the issues and even fears that our customers and other stakeholders have. How about addressing some of those concerns and those issues from the leadership perspective? How do leaders respond to those concerns?
Well, I think there are at least two sets of concerns that leaders have to make sure they are responding to and remaining relevant. The first set are a set of concerns of your own employees, of your own team, so to speak. And in this day and age, and at this time, what leaders have to really focus on is being flexible and compassionate while our teammates and employees are wrestling with childcare, wrestling with illness, wrestling with working remotely, wrestling with taking care of relatives. We have to really, as leaders, up our game, so to speak, when it comes to compassion, when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to being really attentive to all the things that our teammates are juggling at this period of time. The second piece that I would add is leaders need to be particularly sensitive to the added stress that members of their teammates who are people of color are going through during this time of racial reckoning in our country, and particularly I think good at giving people the space and giving people the permission and setting the culture necessary for people to be who they are at this moment, for people to cry at this moment, for people to be confused and angry at this moment. Again, that goes back to compassion for your people. if you're an African American male, for example, traveling through this time, there is no way or little way that you can be expected to not be impacted by all that's going on in the country, in addition to the pandemic and the recession. So we as leaders now have to make sure that we really are upping our game on compassion and frankly being in touch with the spirits of our teammates. The second piece is on the customer side. We have to understand that our customers are also wrestling with all of these issues, and that we need to the maximum extent practicable nowadays, be making sure we're using technology to be of service, that we are positioning ourselves to be useful at this time. And that might mean doing something new or changing something that we're doing or changing some elements of our products and services, but staying relevant to the jobs that the customers are trying to do at this time is a very important thing. And then the third thing that I would add is we have to ask ourselves, what are we contributing to advancing what's happening in the country today? What are we as entities, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, what are we doing as corporate citizens to reduce the risk of the pandemic spreading? What are we doing to help America wrestle with racial justice and equity? What are we doing to be good citizens? Leaders have to be thinking about all of those things in this time. And so it's a challenging and important time for leaders to really try to step into the moment and be useful internally and be useful externally. I'll stop at that.
Okay, thanks so much, Maurice. Very well said. Let's stay with this leadership issue, Kimberly, and let me turn to you. Maurice talked about the need for leaders to be compassionate, for leaders need to be flexible, leaders need to be sensitive. What would you add to this leadership question? How do leaders lead in terms of reopening and in the context of the COVID-19 situation?
Certainly. I think how leaders first lead is by checking in with themselves. And, you know, when we were going through COVID, that was hard enough to deal with, and all of the various business decisions that you have to make regarding, you know, your profits and your losses, and how are you going to stay afloat, and how are you going to keep your people safe. And then, you know, the racial unrest comes about. It took me 3 days to check in with myself, to figure out how I would respond. I could not respond immediately because I needed it to resonate within me. I needed to do a gut check and a heart check. How do I respond in a thoughtful manner, in a manner that is not going to be inappropriate, maybe appropriate for my house, but may not be appropriate that will help move along my staff and my community. And I have a mantra that I've adopted, and it is to give the space, the grace, and the time. The space, the grace, and the time to allow people to make the decisions that they need to make. First of all, for themselves. And then, as Maurice says, you know, then checking in with your staff. It's really, really important to check in with your African-American staff, but it's important to check in with everyone, because everyone is feeling the angst and the anxiousness. And regarding the COVID, then you're dealing with a lot of issues that we see in our communities around the country, particularly here in the States, but as well as around the globe, with people just not wanting to comply, not wanting to wear the mask, and being very angry, being very belligerent about complying and coming up with their various reasons for doing that. And so again, you have to err on the side of caution. You err on the side of the CDC and science, and you stand by that. You have to stand really firm, and sometimes it gets tight, but it's always right. That's being a leader, because your staff and your community, they're looking at you for answers. They're looking to you for answers. So check in with yourself, listen, open up those lines of conversation, and allow people to be heard and know that they're heard, and then make your decisions based on the side of caution.
Okay, thanks so much, Kimberly. I appreciate it. And just one more reminder to the folks who are participating with us today. If you have any questions, please add those to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Maurice, let me come back to you. In fact, you and Kimberly both talked about the racial dimension of what's going on in our nation today. And so let me ask you again, keeping with the leadership component, because it's so important to the Global Good Fund, talk about leadership in terms of the racial injustices, the racial unrest that we are observing and experiencing today.
Well, I think, did I go off mute? Yeah, I'm off of mute. Look, I think the leadership component, in addition to what I just commented on, let me talk about a few other things that I'm seeing that I think is showing some great leadership. We do a lot of work in the racial health and wealth gap space. Most of you probably know this, but if you break down wealth in our country, you'll see that the median net worth of a Black family in our country is somewhere about $17,000 a year. The median net worth of a white family is somewhere around 170-some-thousand, 10 times difference. If you look at health and you break it down by race, you'll see that on average in most of the places in America, people of color are living 10, 20, 30 years less than white folks are living, and they may be living 10 minutes apart. And the differences are the conditions under which they're living. Leadership in this moment means making these gaps that might be invisible to us on a day-to-day basis more visible. So the country understands that we are at risk of living in two different worlds. Leadership is about trying to form the coalitions that can attack these gaps that are, I think, the biggest risk that we face as a country of being or of not being a more perfect union. And so leadership is recognizing what season we're in. We're in a season now where it is important for leaders to be mobilizing coalitions and attacking these things that are pulling us apart. The racial health and wealth gap in this country, it has been with us for a long time, and indeed it is part of the original sin of the country. These things require leaders to speak it, to be completely honest about it, and most importantly, to say and resolve that I'm going to do something about it and I'm going to get other people to help me do it. That's what I think you're starting to see. I'm a naive optimist. I think you're starting to see that. I will tell you that just since March, we have formed partnerships with Netflix and Lowe's and Wells Fargo and Walmart Foundation and Sam's Clubs. So we're starting to see I think, incredible leadership on these points. And the real question is, can we sustain it long enough for it to matter? But those would be, I think, the invitations that I believe leaders are receiving in this day and age. And as I say, I'm encouraged to see some real stepping up in this space.
Okay, thanks very much, Maurice. Again, you and Kimberly are remarkably skilled in your communications. Let me turn it to Danielle to see if we've got any questions from the audience. Danielle?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you all for your comments and responses. They were very helpful. We got a lot of comments in the chat box, how they really appreciated the information you shared and the resources. So we only have time for a few questions, really one or two. So for this next one, which I actually would love for all three of you to answer, is what advice or what are your suggestions to best mentor young social entrepreneurs at this time?
Kimberly, why don't you go first?
Sure. My advice to best mentor social entrepreneurs is really to educate yourself. Take the time right now that you have. You know, we don't have a lot of evening activities that we are committed to, weekends activities. This is the slowest social time that we will experience in a very long time. So take this time to educate yourself. Take this time to take a class, learn something new, hone your skills, do an assessment of yourself to see, okay, what is it that I need to learn that I don't know at this present time, or I need to get better at. So whether that is financial matters and learning how to read a financial statement, take a class. There are so many classes online right now, whether it is public speaking or just designing your business plan. This is the time to do it. You will never again have this kind of free time doing your normal social hours. So upskill yourself, learn something new, hone your craft, and reach out to mentors, whether it be online, LinkedIn, someone that you've taken a class. People are very willing to have those conversations that they didn't have time to have the conversations with you before. So take the time.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Maurice, what are your thoughts?
Let me just add that I think perhaps one of the most important things we can do now to be good mentors to social entrepreneurs, if I'm understanding the query right, is contact. And what I mean by contact, you know, the Zoom and WebEx and MS Teams, I wish I had been an investor in them before COVID. I think I'd be sitting on a little wealth now. But one thing they have allowed us to do is actually to be in contact like this even more than before this, when we were traveling a lot to get to places. So I would tell you, I think probably the simplest, most important thing to do now is raise your game on outreach to folks that you're trying to be mentors to, because what's happening now is the world, communities, people are changing so swiftly that in order to stay on top of things, you really have to stay in touch. And so staying in touch now, using this technology to do it and to do it more frequently, I think is what's going to make you most aware of what people are struggling with, where you can be helpful, what kinds of questions people have, strengthen your insights. And that's really, you know, That's really, I think, one of the more important attributes of being a good mentor is being in touch. And so that's what I would urge us all to do in these times.
Okay, very good. Thank you both. The question from Danielle indicated that she wanted all three of us to comment, so I will try to be very brief. Kimberly and Maurice covered it quite well. In my view, one of the most important things about mentorship is to be available and to be conscious that you should be available at all times. Obviously, that means being in touch, as Maurice was saying, with the person you're trying to mentor, but to be available for other opportunities to mentor, to be available and sensitive to opportunities to encourage people. And remember, when we're in leadership positions, people look to us. People hear what we say. People are interested in what we're saying. But when it comes to mentorship, be authentic, be available, be focused, and as Marie said earlier, be sensitive to the needs and the concerns and the questions of the person that we're trying to help. But being available, being visible, being in touch, I think, is the first prerequisite, and to be sensitive to the role that you're playing as a leader in terms of the relationship you're having with your mentee or with one of your other employees. Folks, I'm enjoying this conversation very much, but we're running out of time, and we've got one other thing to do in terms of our agenda for the day. I will remind folks that if you posted a question on the Q&A box, we will do our best to respond to that question after this meeting. But thank you for the questions that several of you submitted. Now we're going to shift to an update on the Global Good Fund, and I'd like to introduce the Chief of Staff of the Global Good Fund, all the way from Colombia, I believe, Manolo Paez. So Manolo, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth, and thank you again to Maurice and Kimberly for joining today to kick off these great initiatives with the Global Good Fund. We just heard from Maurice and Kimberly about the importance of leadership and the role that businesses, organizations, and individuals must take in order to successfully address the issues and challenges facing our society. The idea of leadership and helping our entrepreneurs develop as leaders is central to GGF mission and to our fellowship programs. Our entrepreneurs learn important leadership skills through their involvement with GGF to adapt no matter what the situation, to pivot, be flexible, and find success. These leadership skills, along with business leaders that are participating on this call today, and by the way, thank you again for joining today, is what makes the Global Good Fund program one of the most competitive and effective fellowship programs for social entrepreneurs in the world. As part of this journey, besides supporting social entrepreneurs like Kimberly that you just heard a few minutes ago, for 6 out of the last 9 years, we have been also able to package the tools and methodologies we offer in our fellowship programs under what we call leadership services. We have offered these services to nonprofits and for-profit enterprises that want to provide leadership acceleration opportunities for their employees and the communities they serve. Through these services, we have been able to expand our impact to places that we have never imagined before. We believe that the best investment that companies can make is the investment in their people. More than ever, the world needs strong leaders to rebuild an equitable economy and society. And we just heard that from Kimberly and Maurice. This is a critical time for businesses to focus on excellence, assessing strengths, and building their employees and teams. As a highly experienced organization in accelerating the success and impact of brilliant global innovators and leaders, we have decided this year to make our proprietary tools accessible to businesses on a larger scale than ever before. In the past, businesses like Johnson & Johnson, Ernst & Young, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and Schusterman Family Foundation have trusted our methodology, and we are ready now to continue expanding our impact. If your enterprises or those companies that you advise could benefit from our services, please reach out to me or to any member at the Global Good Fund. It will be a huge win for GGF to have your referral. We have created an accessible pricing model And 100%, and let me repeat this, 100% of the earnings go back to GGF to support more social entrepreneurs like Kimberly and the more than 150 entrepreneurs we had support until 2019. And this will help us to continue scaling that impact. We look forward to being able to scale this part of our organization with your support. It's simple. Let's develop your people while making the world a better place. That is our ask from you today. And before we officially conclude today's program, I have some reminders from the Global Good Fund team that I want to share with you. Our next program is quickly approaching. Next week, on Wednesday, July 22nd, the BEC will continue its community conversations with impact investing at the main topic. If you haven't already registered, please make sure to do so. Also, in the coming minutes, Danielle will send you a follow-up email with additional information on leadership services, upcoming events, and a survey about today's program. Please, and let me repeat this, please fill that out. That's the best way for us to see how we can improve and do better for you. Your input is going to be very important to us as we continue to build out the BEC network, and will help us to plan for future programs that are most relevant to you, our BEC community. And finally, we would like to conclude with a big thank you. GGF will not be able to do its work without you. So I want to thank you for your time today, for your support of GGF, for helping us grow our impact, and for joining this impressive community. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon. Goodbye, hasta pronto, ciao.
Thank you so much. And thank you all again for joining us. Thank you so much, Manolo. Wood, Kimberly, Maurice, if you're still with us. We did have a few other questions from folks. I know we are running out of time, so maybe just some closing remarks. And also, can you let our audience know how they can get in touch with you or find you?
Great. This has been really wonderful. I've enjoyed the conversation, and just learning from Maurice and Wood has been awesome. I'm so pleased to just be a part of it. So in closing, I just want to remind people to make sure that you take care of yourselves, that you take care of your staff, that you listen to that inner voice inside of you that is going to lead and guide and direct you to making the right choices for your particular constituency in your particular area. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Kimberly Lewis 5 Twitter, Kimberly Lewis 5 Twitter, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly here at Goodwill at kim.lewis, Lewis, at goodwilletx.com. So just reach out to me if you have any additional questions. I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kimberly. How about you, Maurice?
First, I also want to thank Wood and Kimberly for giving me the chance to be with you this morning. It was a lot of fun. And also want to thank everybody who joined us. Let me just start with reaching out to me. Easy. You can do email mjones@lisc.org. That's LISC.org. Or you can call me 757-477-5561. Either one will work, or text me at that 757-477-5561 number. Just final thoughts. With respect to leadership, it is hard to overstate how important it is, particularly at this time. People need leaders to step into their roles, to make decisions, to help folks understand what's important and what matters, and most especially to be compassionate. I'll go back to that. You cannot overstate how much in this day and age compassion is needed to lead well. And so I'm grateful for the chance to chat with everybody this morning, and look forward to hopefully remaining in contact. And in all seriousness, if I can be helpful, please reach out to me in either of the ways I just mentioned. So happy Friday to everybody.
Thanks very much, Maurice. Let me just thank you and Kimberly on behalf of everyone at the Global Good Fund for taking time today to be involved in this conversation. And for the participants, I think you can see very readily that there is a lot more that these two folks can comment on and can educate us on when it comes to leadership, the racial challenges that our nation faces, the idea of reopening small businesses and organizations in the midst of a pandemic. So feel free to reach out to them. The only thing I would add in terms of a closing comment is to emphasize, as both Kimberly and Maurice did, the importance of leadership in this time. Our people, our customers, our mentees are looking for guidance, they're looking for information, they're looking for truth. And so we've got to be available, we've got to be able to communicate, we've got to be present, we have to be visible, and we have to seize the moment in terms of attempting to help people in this time of uncertainty and these unprecedented times that we've had, that we're experiencing today. And again, leadership is the key. That's one reason I'm so pleased to be part of the Global Good Fund, is because of our emphasis on leadership and leadership development of social entrepreneurs and veterans that are coming out of the service, et cetera. And you can contact me through the Global Good Fund, wood.parker@globalgoodfund.org. So Kimberly, I'm sorry, not Kimberly, but Danielle, let me turn it back to you for wrapping up.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be in touch. I did put a link to a feedback form in the chat box. So please click on that, give us your feedback. It is incredibly helpful as we are planning future events and we are moving forward to grow the BEC. There will be an email coming to you shortly that will have information about leadership services, how to register for our next events, as well as some other information that was talked about today. And just thank you again to our panelists and our speakers and to everybody on this call. I cannot wait for everything that is next in growing this community with each and every one of you. So I said we'd keep it under an hour, which we did. So I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day and has a lovely weekend and is staying safe and looking forward to our next conversation. Have a great day.